Who are the realistic trade targets out there for the Royals? I'll give you my thoughts next on Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are tuned into another edition of Locked On Royals in the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. And you can always catch us on wherever you listen to your podcast: Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit the follow button and subscribe. Before we go any further, I want to let you know that today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when that first $5 bet wins. So get started today over at FanDuel. And for the first-time listeners out there, here's how the format works. We bring you episodes Monday through Friday, unless we have some scheduling conflicts, which will be coming up this week and a little bit early on in the next week. As I mentioned in yesterday's episode, I'll be going to a wedding this weekend, and then from that wedding to San Francisco to see the Royals take on the Giants. But I'm still on the fence of if we're going to do a Mailbag Friday episode, if we'll just do a normal Friday episode and then have the questions answered by the end of the weekend. And then on Monday and Tuesday, likely not going to be able to do a full episode, as I won't be in my typical environment to actually do a podcast, but I will be making those up over the weekend next weekend. So you still will get those 5 episodes a week. So what I can tell those new listeners is you can always count on 5 episodes a week and 60-second recaps after each and every Royals game. We are about a few hours away from first pitch in Game 2 between the Royals and the Houston Astros. I'll be getting that recap up sometime after the game tonight, and then you can expect another afternoon episode tomorrow and a recap after that. But this felt like a good time because I've been teasing it almost a little bit on Twitter about trade targets. People want to know my thoughts. And I thought it also would be a good time considering that maybe over the last 2 to 3 weeks, I've been getting questions on a Mailbag Friday about trade targets. And I felt my answers were getting a little bit stale. I was giving the same names over and over and over again. So I thought it would be a good time over the last few days to dive into some realistic trade targets and why I believe personally they would be a good fit for Kansas City. So I listed out about 5 or 6 guys here, and the majority of them are hitters. There is one reliever in this list here, and I'm actually very high on this reliever and feel that he would be the most affordable of the 6 actually that I did mention. Number 1, and if you clicked on this via YouTube, you probably already saw the photo thumbnail, if you will, of who this player would be. Maybe you recognize him, maybe you don't. But it is Dane Myers of the Miami Marlins. I need to probably open up this thought by mentioning he was just put on the 10-day injured list with a moderate, and I do say moderate because Dane himself called it moderate, oblique strain. Obliques can be a bit tricky. If it doesn't heal correctly, that is something that lingers for an entire season. Bubba Starling a few years back had an oblique injury, and it just never went away. I'm not saying they're the same player. I'm saying that's how long an oblique injury can keep you out. So he went on the injured list May 12th, so retroactive to that day, which means he's eligible to return May 22nd. From what was said in the post-game press conference and what he was saying, he expects to be out just a few weeks. But the numbers that he has posted this year would be more than an upgrade for the Royals. And he's a bit of a late bloomer, 29 years old, just turned 29. And the numbers have been great this year in Miami. And I thought last year as well, they were pretty good. He's hitting over 330. He has an OPS plus and WRC plus that is well north of the league average. He's only had 88 plate appearances, so that's why I believe he's more so affordable. Being a late bloomer, he's not a free agent until 2030, but he's slashing 337, 375 with a 482 slug. He's in the 99th percentile in expected batting average, 87th percentile in average exit velocity. He's also in the 95 plus percentile in arm value and in arm strength. He can play all three outfield spots. The Marlins, though, just recently kind of made him an everyday player. You go through the month of April, he was not starting every single game, hence why he only has 88 plate appearances. But he's already accumulated a 1.1 WAR in 29 games for the Marlins. The Marlins are going to be sellers. They have transitioned into this phase of we want to bring in young talent and we want to build around that young talent. And I'm not sold that Dane Myers, as much as I'm sure Marlins fans love him, fits into that category. He, by MLB experience, is a young player. He is a late bloomer, right? He debuted at 27. He was a college bat. So it didn't take him forever to get to the big leagues, but it maybe took him a little bit longer as a college bat to get to the bigs. But the last 2 years, that is a hitter that I believe would be an upgrade for the Royals offense. I'm not saying he needs to be an everyday starter, but I would say that he would be an upgrade that you could have off the bench and maybe platoon if you want to. Though his platoon splits are pretty even. He's been able to hit lefties and righties this year. Now, good buddy Joel Penfield, and he does fantastic work over at One Royal Way. He reached out to me and kind of plugged a potential trade into the simulator for the Royals and the Marlins. And Dane Myers was worth about 31.7 points of value, which would be equivalent to the Royals giving up Noah Cameron, Blake Mitchell, and Felix Arande. That's a trade I would not do. I thought because of his age and because of where the Marlins are at, it would make more sense to make a trade if it wasn't requiring a top 5 prospect. Right there, you've got 2 guys in your top 5 and an additional one that I'm high on, and Arande, that would be going to Miami. The Royals would not do a trade like that. But if the trade simulator is a little bit off and they could get Dane Myers, considering he was on the injured list and he wouldn't have maybe more than 50 games under his belt or 55 games by the deadline, well, that might be a guy you're just banking on to be a good bench bat and an upgrade over what you might have. So I'm a believer in Dane Myers. If the asking price is too high, then you stay away from it. But I believe he would be affordable. I believe he would be a good fit, and he's got multiple years of control, which I know the Royals would be interested in looking at. Number 2 on my list is Cedric Mullins. Cedric Mullins is somebody that has been brought up a few times in the comments. I believe he would be a great fit in Kansas City. You could put him in all 3 spots of the outfield. He has been an Oriole for life. He has been there all 8 years of his career. He has seen the worst of the worst, and he has seen some great seasons as well. But the Orioles are trending toward being sellers. I don't know if Mike Elias will pull the trigger because he's an aggressive GM when it comes to rebuilding teams and how he goes about it. But the Orioles were pretty quiet this offseason, and maybe that meant by the deadline they were going to put their chips in once again. If they go on a surge, well, everybody that's available in Baltimore suddenly doesn't become available anymore. I, though, look at their rotation, I look at their bullpen, and I see too many holes. They're leaking oil. And having a well below average rotation and a well below average bullpen, I don't know how you can all of a sudden flip that around and you're going to be a contender. So if the Orioles are sellers, number 1 on my list would be Cedric Mullins. They need outfield help. That is a above league average bat. That is somebody that could handle all 3 positions, and you could hit him just about anywhere in the order. So he's number 2 on my list. Number 3 would be Taylor Ward. And Taylor Ward is just my golden goose, as I said on the Twitter Spaces last night. I was interested in him last deadline, interested in him in this offseason, and I'm still going to be interested in him this deadline, even if he's hitting a $190. Now, last night, the Angels pulled off one improbable comeback over maybe the best closer in the National League. Right now, the best closer in baseball appears to be Andres Munoz with what he's been able to do, not allowing a run over his first 17 or 18 innings. But Robert Suarez couldn't find his command after getting the first out of the inning, and Taylor Ward had the go-ahead grand slam in the 9th inning that really just silenced Petco Park. But he's going to be one of those guys I constantly just keep my eye on. The numbers are not good this year. By the slash line, the OPS plus, some of those advanced numbers, he would not be a top 5 hitter on the Royals right now. He'd be one of the bottom hitters. But you could be rolling the dice with that extra year of control, if I'm not mistaken. You could be rolling the dice that he finds himself yet again and becomes the Taylor Ward of last year. That's why he's going to stay on my radar. Number 4, again, I've already put my neck out there for this, and it got harshly rejected by everybody else out there. It doesn't mean I'm not going to bring his name back up. It's Ryan O'Hearn. If we're going to look at Baltimore Orioles and guys they would be looking to sell off, Ryan O'Hearn would be one of those guys. He's an unrestricted free agent after this season. He just turned 32, so it's not that you are asking for a 25-year-old with multiple years of control. He's played more in right field this year than first base. He's predominantly been a DH. But if you wanted to bring him in as a platoon bat and only face righties, I could live with that. I'm not looking at Ryan O'Hearn through the same lens that I did in 19, 20, 21, and 22. I'm looking at what he's done the last 2 years in Baltimore, and he has been a really good hitter. He's had an OPS plus 27 points above league average, and there's been the pushback for obvious reasons. I get it. I'm just simply laying out some numbers here. There's this, he's a Camden Yards merchant. He's only good because of the short porch. Power-wise, maybe, but he has a better average on the road this year and a better on base on the road than at Camden Yards. Yeah, he can take advantage of the short porch. Does anybody remember the home run he had off Michael Wacha in game 1 of that series in Baltimore? Left center. He's obviously got the power to go the other way, but I'm not bringing him in to be the thumper in the middle of the order. I'm bringing him in to be an upgrade over what they got in the corner outfield spots. If he's a DH and right fielder, okay. Yeah, I would still like Jack Caglione in that spot, but this doesn't deter me from making a move like that. And there was the talk of, are those road games at Yankee Stadium and Toronto where hitters can really take off? The Orioles have not played him at Yankee Stadium this year. He has seen Toronto, but he's been in Anaheim, he's been in Detroit, he's been in Kansas City, he's been in Minnesota. So some of those numbers are good in hitters' ballparks. And that's why I'm throwing the name out there. In my opinion, and I know it's going to be harshly rejected again on YouTube because it was about 50 or 55 times on Twitter, I'm looking at the hitter he is now. And if it doesn't work out, well, hopefully he didn't give up too much. I just don't know for Baltimore how you could ask for the moon for a DH 32-year-old who's going to be a free agent, a rental. And I still believe the Royals want to go after somebody with years of control, which is why he's number 4 on this list. Number 5, if they wanted to have an upgrade over a Kevin Biggio, I like Josh Rojas for the White Sox. I went through all the teams that are going to be selling and picked some guys that I believe would give them the most value. Josh Rojas for the White Sox. I know you're probably saying Luis Robert, why not him? I just believe the White Sox are going to be asking way, way too much from the Royals for Luis Robert. They don't want to see him in the division. Whereas Josh Rojas was somebody that was kind of linked to the Royals in the offseason, super utility guy, can play multiple positions and hit with a little bit of power. I was impressed with what he did in Kansas City in that White Sox series. Chicago didn't win one game, but it wasn't because of Josh Rojas. I believe he could be an upgrade over Kevin Biggio as your super utility guy, almost in the way you went after Paul DeJong last year to give you a little extra depth in the infield, but also Rojas can play just about anywhere. And lastly, the reliever I was teasing and already put it out there on Twitter. You can follow me at JohnnyJ_15. Ryan Borucki, minor league deal guy that signed with the Pirates in January, and the stuff has been exceptional. A funky left-handed thrower, pretty much just dominant against lefties. He's not that great against righties, but I believe the Royals need to find that lefty specialist for the bullpen. If it's not Serpa and it's not Long and it's not Sisk, they got to go after somebody, and Borucki would be one of the cheapest options you could go get that still gives you really good numbers. And it's not just the surface level numbers, it's some of those advanced numbers. He does not walk anybody. He's got about a 6% walk rate. His ground ball rate is in the 99th percentile. He throws a sinker, sweeper, slider, and changeup. He's got a 2.70 ERA in about 15 to 16 innings so far this year. But the Pirates made a good move there. And the Pirates are going to be sellers. And they are definitely going to unload somebody who's going to be a free agent next year, was on a minor league deal. You get what you can out of them, and you try to get a prospect in return. That, to me, would solve that lefty hole in the bullpen. I don't want Daniel Lynch to be the lefty specialist. I want Ryan Borucki to be the guy that gets you an out or two when there's back-to-back lefties that you're facing coming out of the bullpen. So those are the 6 names I came up with for now. I'm sure I'll have more the closer we get to the deadline. But if there's anybody that you are interested in, let us know in the YouTube comments below, and you can leave them on any of our YouTube videos that we've already posted. All right, we're going to take our first break of the show. When we come back, want to give some praise to Kyle Isbel and his performance of late. Is it sustainable? Maybe more importantly, is this level of Kyle Isbel good enough to keep him around as an everyday player? I'll give you my thoughts next on Locked On Royals. You are tuning to Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Our only sponsor that we are going to be giving a shout out to today is FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, as we know, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. With all this talk about the offense and the woes they've gone through and the ups and downs, I've gotten to this point where I truly don't believe the bottom of the order is the issue anymore. They have their inconsistencies, but it feels like for the last 2 weeks, really since they've been on this stretch of winning 17 of 21, the bottom of the order has provided them some really good value. And Kyle Isbel's been one of those guys. I mean, think about all the times we talked about the outfield and what they were giving. Drew Waters, after last night, is hitting .271. He's OPSing at .699. Kyle Isbel, after another multi-hit game and a walk, I might add, only his second of the season, he's hitting .280 with a .728 OPS. That is higher than Jonathan India. That is higher than Vinny Pasquantino, Salvador Perez, Michael Massey, Kevin Biggio, and of course, Drew Waters. Last night, he had the third highest OPS. And that's only behind Bobby Witt Jr., who's at .910, and Maikel Garcia, who's at .817. Your two leading hitters of the bunch. But Kyle Isbel now hitting .280. He's not getting on base at a much higher clip because he doesn't walk. But in 100 at-bats, to have 28 hits, it's not the entire season. We know that .280 version of Kyle Isbel is not that sustainable, so let's get that out of the way. He's getting on base at a .288 clip. He got on base at a .287 clip last year, but he's slugging .440, which is the highest mark of his career and the highest since 2021 when he slugged at .434, but he also hit .276, got on base at .337, though it was just 76 at bats that year. We knew he was moving up and down a little bit. Still, in those 37 games, I believe you've gotten a very valuable version of Kyle Isbel because of that defense, and then to hit .280 as the 9-hole hitter. In the last 30 games, he's hitting .300. So you take out 7 of the games that he's played in, he's been a .300 hitter. And he has been OPSing just south of .800 in his last 30 games. We've seen the power be on display a little bit. We've seen some of the extra base hit power, I guess you could say, gapping it to mainly right center and down the line in right field. But his swing has looked good over the last month or so. He is never going to be the most complete hitter. We've known that for years. Kyle Isbel has been this team's center fielder really since, let's just go to the beginning of 2023, because Michael A. Taylor was this team's center fielder in 21 and 22. But in 2023, he took over as the full-time center fielder. And J.J. Piccolo went on to say, after that season, that was one of the parts they were evaluating. Could Kyle Isbel be our everyday center fielder? And I don't envision him being a 158 game player or a 160 game player. And I almost see the Royals viewing that the same way as well. If they go out there and acquire a corner outfield bat, one of the names I was mentioning, maybe somebody I'm not mentioning, or Jack Caglione is up, I could see a world in which they platoon Drew Waters and Kyle Isbel. You're not overexposing Isbel. You're not overexposing Drew Waters. And both of those guys don't have great underlying metrics, which would tell you that regression is going to be somewhere. When this offense really goes through its problems again, you're not going to see them hitting 280, 285. They're going to be on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. But you can take this for what it is. And it's a really good stretch for Kyle Isbel. We don't need to look at these 30-game sample sizes or these 40-game sample sizes and say, oh, well, that's who the player is, right? Because baseball is about those spurts, if we're being honest. When you look at a player, there are few on the Royals that from March to September don't really go through many slumps. Bobby Witt Jr. even had a long slump last year, and it was before the All-Star break. And then he hit better than anybody in the game right out of the All-Star break. He led the American League in hitting. He hit .330. He won a batting title. But other than that, every other hitter in this lineup goes through those peaks and valleys. We saw Vinny go through it. We saw Salvi go through it. We saw Jonathan India go through it. We've seen Massey go through it. We saw Isbel go through it for a point in time. It was very, very early on in the season. In fact, it was the first couple series of the year. Maikel Garcia really hasn't until late. He's won for his last 18. So you don't have an abundance of those guys. And truthfully, when you go to the end of the year and you look back on all these other months, you are not going to maybe come down too hard on the player because of their final averages and say, that's the reason we didn't make the playoffs, or that's the reason we didn't advance as far as we wanted to in October. What I'm getting at here is if Kyle Isbel finishes the year at 240 or 230, and you were to pull up this episode and go, well, we were talking about 280 Kyle Isbel, man, it was just totally worthless. It was all a smokescreen. No, I view it in the way of him hitting the way he is right now has contributed to a 17-4 stretch. That's an important stretch. And if that's who Kyle Isbel is, I'm fine with it. If every other month he gives you a stretch where he hits 300 over 30 games, you're going to be just fine in center field. Now, if every other month he's hitting 140, it might even out where it's not that valuable. But just winning these couple of weeks, it's important in the big picture. It's important in the long run. Drew Waters may not be the everyday player in August and September, but what he's done since getting promoted from Omaha has been incredibly valuable. And even if he's a bench player by September, what he's done now is important. What Cavan Biggio may do for a week or two stretch, it's important in winning those games. And so that's maybe how I view those guys at the bottom of the order. If they give you a couple of good weeks, that's great. That's better than maybe what they got last season from a handful of guys. What MJ Melendez and Hunter Renfroe have given this team in the first, 43 games of the season? It's not anything. So if Kyle Isbel, this is the best he can give you, it's still important in these last 30 games. That's a 30-game stretch where you haven't had to worry about what you're getting out of your 9-hole hitter. I tip my cap. He's played great defense, and he's been a good piece at the bottom of the order. We'll see what he does in the remaining parts of this Houston series and into this big rivalry weekend series against the St. Louis Cardinals. We'll break for the final time today on Locked On Royals, and when we return, are the Royals being too reliant on good pitching? And if so, how long can they ride it? We'll dive into that next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Funny enough, this was going to be our topic yesterday before I got caught up at work and had to record later on in the evening. And I apologize at times for all the switch ups that we may have. What really matters to me is that I do get these episodes out. May not always be in a timely manner. And sometimes we got to change the drafts and we got to change the schedule all the way up until we start recording. And yesterday, this was going to be my top segment, which was that are the Royals maybe too reliant on the starting pitching and the bullpen? And if they are too reliant, how long can they ride it? How long can they put all of this pressure on the backs of the starting rotation and the bullpen? And it's been a question on our Mailbag Fridays a few times. And there's no denying at this point the rotation's legit. The bullpen has its guys, its trustworthy guys, and it appears to be who they are. They are always going to be a team, whether it be now or in September. They are always going to be a team that does rely on pitching, but they do need to transition into a team that can also aid the pitching. Not sit back in a series and score 4 runs and go, well, we did win one of them, or maybe we won the series and we scored only 4 runs. That's good enough for us because at the end of the day, those are wins. We've heard that phrase many a times before. I've used that phrase a lot. Hey, a win is a win. Last night, it wasn't very pretty late, but a win is a win. Last night's different, though, because the offense was the one to pick up maybe the 5 runs late. What they did in the first 3 innings, that allowed them a buffer zone. That allowed them some cushion. Whereas the pitching staff in a lot of games this year have to be perfect. They have to go through the first 5 innings without allowing a run. Prior to last night, Michael Wacha was getting less than 2 runs on average of run support every start. That's what he was getting. And that's being too reliant on Michael Wacha and almost taking for granted how great he had been. That start in Baltimore was infuriating. Dean Kramer and his 7+ ERA goes toe-to-toe with Wacha, and Wacha gets through 6 shutout, and then Ryan O'Hearn has the 2-run home run in the 7th, and you're going, could nobody give me a run or 2 to work with? In that start he had at Yankee Stadium, he got 2 runs of support and nothing after that. And then Angel Zerpa had the floodgates bust open when Dominguez had the double down the line that scored 3. And those were the games where maybe the offense was so complacent. And look, I don't believe they are complacent hitters. I believe they were going through slumps. They're not watching the pitching staff and going, oh, all we need is a run or 2. They're trying to score as many runs as possible, so don't get it twisted there. But if you are going throughout these series, winning a lot of games 2-1, 3-1, I would say honestly, in the ways that Cleveland did last year, Cleveland was phenomenal at closing out those games. 1-0, 2-1, 3-2. You turn it over to that bullpen, it's game over. But what happened in the postseason? They did get to the ALCS. They did compete with the Yankees, but their bullpen was taxed. Their bullpen was worn down, especially Emmanuel Clase, by the end of it. And it was because of all that usage in the regular season. The Royals in the second half last year saw the regression from Seth Lugo. Why? Because he was throwing 6-7 innings every single start, which is good, which is the goal. But you are going to see some arms wear down. And even if you get to the postseason, right, the goal should be these guys have to be fresh by the time you take on the Yankees or the Tigers or the Guardians, because that's our best chance of winning. So to sum it up about this segment, relying too much on pitching, it's fine to be a pitcher-first team. And that's who the Royals are. They win a lot of games on good pitching, good defense, and their speed. Last night, they were able to win because of their offense and 6 1/3 really good innings from Michael Wacha. The bullpen wasn't as sharp, or I should say Steven Cruz wasn't as sharp. But if you get to October and all these games get added up, the 7 innings from Lugo, the 7 innings from Wacha, the 7 from Bubic, and those guys are on fumes by the end of it, well, all of a sudden the team that is relying on pitching to win them games, they can't really rely on getting deep into October. We saw it win them the series in Baltimore. And then when the rotation wasn't as sharp against the Yankees and a loaded lineup, well, they weren't equipped to go toe-to-toe with the offense. So personally, I don't believe it's an issue right now. But if you get into July and August, and there's still a lot of times you're turning to the bullpen and you're asking the starters to go 6 or 7 innings, like it's going to be great in August if you see Walker go 5 or 6 and it's 8-1. And you turn it over to the lower leverage guys, you keep those guys fresh. That's what's going to be important. Nobody's asking the Royals to be a 6-run-a-night team. You're asking for 4, but it's good to see at least once a series a game like last night, a 7-0 cushion or a 5-0 cushion or a 4-0 cushion. Let these guys pitch free and easy and not have the high stress all the time. And if they can do that, those guys are going to be fresh. And I know it kind of maybe goes against what Cleveland was last year because Cleveland didn't get a lot of innings from their starters and the bullpen was overworked because they had to work from the 5th inning on. The Royals can go deep into games. They get a lot of innings out of the starters, so the bullpen might be fresh, as we saw in October last year, but the rotation was kind of burned out. You want to have that perfect middle ground, if you will. A fresher rotation and a fresher bullpen. That's why I believe like six innings is always the goal. Give a quality start. You're not asking for 7 or 8 unless you're just absolutely dealing on a low pitch count. And for the bullpen, I want to see 3 innings. I want to see 2 to 3 innings each and every night and a variety of guys, which right now the Royals do have a variety of guys that can get outs in high leverage spots. All right, that's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jack Johnson. Thank you for making Locked On Royals your first listen today. For your second, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale and find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Tomorrow, we'll have a little bit of a preview into that rivalry weekend series. And, of course, we're going to recap what happened in Game 2 tonight between Chris Bubich, Framber Valdez, and the Houston Astros. But until then, you take it easy, Kansas City.